You're listening to Thematics, presented by UnleashStrengths.com, the only show that embraces your addiction to strengths. Oh yeah, how's it going, everybody? This is Andy Sokolovich from UnleashStrengths.com. I love that intro music. It always gets me kind of going up here in the morning. So again, my name is Andy Sokolovich. I am a Gallup certified strength coach and the owner of a coaching practice nestled right here in the small Midwest town of Clinton, Iowa, Unleash Strengths. I am a coach for hire, working with organizations to enhance employee engagement, boost recognition, and increase overall job satisfaction. If you are interested in enlisting the skills of a strengths coach or are looking for a speaker for your next workshop, conference, or seminar, consider giving me a call, 815-441-2219, or emailing me, Andy, at UnleashStrengths.com. Thematics is a podcast series designed to highlight the massive impact the Clifton Strengths Finder assessment has had on now over 12 million people. It's our belief that the best way to promote its effectiveness and proven results is to interview those who've experienced the power of strengths-based development firsthand. Our guest today is intimately aware of her strengths and wants nothing more than to share her story in an effort to help others just like you succeed. For more information or to schedule an interview for yourself, that's right, you too can be on Thematics. Again, email me, Andy, at UnleashStrengths.com. Social media, hit us up, Facebook.com/UnleashStrengths, Twitter at UnleashCSF. You can subscribe to our RSS feed and our podcast on iTunes by clicking on those sweet links on the top right-hand corner of our website at UnleashStrengths.com. Remember, if you do listen to us via iTunes, we ask that you please give us a positive review. It really helps our show grow. You can also submit your questions via a cool little widget we have on website, UnleashStrengths.com. On the right-hand side, there's a red button that says Submit a Question. Go ahead and click on that, use your microphone via your computer, and leave me a message. I will make sure that that message is played on the air during Thematics, and all three of us, Grace, myself, and our guests, will be sure to answer your question. Speaking of Grace, my co-host is the one, the only, the lovely Grace LeConte. She is the owner of LeConte Consulting. You can find more information about Grace at LeConteConsulting.com. That's LACONTE Consulting.com. And Grace works hard to provide strengths-based training to management teams and groups. Grace, what's going on?
Hello, Andy. I'm doing great today.
Good.
I got working internet.
Yeah, tell us what happened to your router.
Yeah, it melted.
Melted.
I'm in the Portland area, and we've had a record hot summer in the hundreds. And everybody I know has had internet problems, and I finally found out that routers can melt.
Wow.
There are internal issues when it gets too hot.
That's so weird, because if I ever started a heavy metal band, I was going to name it Melted Router.
Melted router.
That was going to be the name, so it's crazy.
I would probably listen for a bit, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I may have to do that. So Grace, as always, you and I could talk forever, but today's show is not about us. Would you like to go ahead and introduce our guest?
I would love to. So our guest today is a friend of mine from Minnesota, which is 2 states ago, where I used to live. An amazing place full of lakes and positive people for the most part. Nancy Zugschwert is a wonderful friend of mine, and she has an infectious personality and smile that I'm just so glad to have on this show. So Nancy, would you mind introducing your top 5 strengths for us?
I'd be happy to. My top strengths are woo, communication, activator, positivity, and ideation.
That is awesome. I happen to have all 5 of those in my top 10, Nancy.
Oh my goodness, no wonder we got along so well.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Nancy, you and I share woo, communication, and ideation. I love how many people have I met that have had woo first? I think only like 1 or 2. So I'm always interested, especially on a podcast, to interview somebody who has woo and communication really high up there. So Nancy, what do you do? What occupies your time during the day? I know you have a new website out. Tell us a little bit about that blog.
Yep, my brand new endeavor is a new blog that I started literally just last week. It's called theupside.com. It's a blog that I'm just blogging about personal stuff. My tagline is fresh perspectives and practical positivity. And I just want to have people think about ordinary things in new ways. Things that happen at home, things that happen in relationships or at work. And I'm just kind of going where the spirit leads me right now and the things that I've been writing and seeing what hits people in their hearts or between the eyeballs, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Yeah, I always applaud anybody who's willing to kind of share their thoughts, their genius, their ideas via the World Wide Web, because it's a very revealing process to get out there and actually take something that you have rattling around in your brain, put it out in a text format, and submit it via a website as a blog post. And I always applaud people who do that because it's amazing the impact you can make on such a broad scale.
Yeah, Nancy, would you mind sharing just briefly your journey to coming up with this concept of having a blog for the world to read? I know that you've been a writer for years, right?
Right, and that's my day job is as a communications specialist in the marketing and communications office at a small Christian university here in the St. Paul. And I really started probably when about going on 2 years ago now when I turned 50. You know, those things happen. You get those milestones and it's like, wow, what does the rest of my life look like? And I just had a strong sense that I had been putting a lot of dreams on the shelf and a lot of kind of personal strengths really sidelined just because I was so in the habit of living the life I had. I have a wonderful, wonderful husband named Jim. We call him Jimmy Z. And
Jimmy Z. Hi, Jimmy Z.
And I have 4 sons, ages 24 down to 14. One's moved out of the house, lives in Chicago. One is getting married at the end of the summer. And then I have 2 still at home full time who are waning down their childhood years as well. And so it was just a season where I said, you know what, I write all day and that's one of my strengths, but I speak too. And so this really started oddly in a greater strength last summer when I joined and signed up for a National Speakers Association Speakers Academy that took place in the fall. And on the way to that, they said, you should also think of different platforms that you want to, expose you to the world, so to speak. And I've had friends along the years say, oh, Nancy, you should blog. You should blog. I'd say something in response to something they were going through. Oh, you should blog. I'm like, I don't know.
I told you that too at the party. I was like, Nancy, write this down in a blog.
What do I blog about? I just, I speak from the heart and then I forget what I said, so it's just, so anyway, the long story short, my son in Chicago, Kevin, gave me a ticket last fall to the Minnesota Bloggers Conference. And I thought, well, okay, let's go. And I went on my own, didn't think I know anybody there, found a friend that I knew. That was so reassuring. And even woos can be intimidated when you're going into a situation where you feel like you don't belong. And so got a lot of great ideas that day. And I started being courageous enough to say to people, I'm going to start a blog. I'm going to start a blog. And so that was my rhetoric for several months. And then January came, I'm like, okay, I'm starting a blog in 2015. And then I started to say like late spring. And I would do things along the way that I knew were part of it, but I wasn't sure the order of things. And I got a little bogged down in the middle of the spring with all the details. Had a great conversation with the guy that I met at a Toastmasters convention. And he said, it sounds like you're getting really wrapped up in the how. I'm like, you're right. I have to think of the why. And so that reshifted my thinking. And then it was just the how was still logistical things. But what really got me off the dime then was a friend of mine is in charge of the Creative Mornings gatherings in the Minneapolis area. And they started this thing called the 30-second pitch. And she wanted me to come and you give 30 seconds to this group of creative people to ask them for ideas or input or sell them something. And so I decided to use it as an opportunity to ask for ideas to launch the blog. And I felt really strongly that in order to stand there, I had to give a date. And so for that event, I randomly said, I'm starting my blog on July 15th. And then that gave the energy of a deadline, which I always work best with. And so last week on July 15th, my blog launched.
That's awesome. Good job for sticking with it and working through the nervousness of the how. Yeah. Fantastic.
I had a lot of great people come alongside me. I got linked up with a great designer, and the whole story of it is on the blog, so you can read about that.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out, and it's theupside.com. So, yes, I'm proud of you for starting that blog because I think that's an amazing milestone that you're going to look back on. And a blog is never ending in its growth. It always just continues to mature. And I think anybody that's got something to say, start a blog. So very cool. And I love, my next question is going to be, who introduced you to StrengthsFinder and why? How'd that come into play? But I think you can answer this question too, kind of as a sub-question. Identifying your top 5 with woo and communication in there, did blogging seem like that it would come naturally to you?
The introduction to strengths came about I guess it was around 2008. So several years ago now, at my organization that I work for, they've adopted strengths and use it throughout the organization and regularly train people. And our team was one of the early adopters. We got to have a special training session by a consultant such as yourselves. And so we did the strengths inventory, and then we had a special day away at a hotel or something where we got to go through the training. And I have to tell you that I'm going to get emotional here. It was like someone revealed to me freshly who God created me to be. And it was in a season of my life where I had been suppressing some of my greatest strengths. Some of it was in response, I mean, in all honesty, and I think I can say this and be okay with them listening, to having teenage sons who their communication style, because I didn't have any woos at that stage, is not typically really high enthusiasm, love the upbeat mom in the morning. And you just get the sense that everything I do and everything I am annoys these people. And so without knowing it, I think I just tried to tone it down a little. And sometimes I'd had situations at work where I'd literally been told, we don't really need ideation here. We're going to go on and do this. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I have too many ideas, so I got to back off that. And so this process for me was a watershed experience of saying, guess what? That's who I am, isn't it? And won't I be a lot happier in life if I decide to live in line with the way my creator created me to be, rather than try to be someone else for someone else? And that really was the beginning of what's been a several years process now of embracing much more my natural wiring. So it's really been a joy. And the second question you asked was, did I think this would align with starting a blog? And I'd say yes. Yeah. I'm not afraid of attention. I'm not afraid of putting myself out there. I'm not at all afraid of being embarrassed, because I'm really masterful at embarrassing myself and always have been. And so, what is there to lose other than the really ridiculous? I watch too many crime show dramas about, people lurking out there and now knowing me publicly. So there really wasn't any risk that I felt.
Yeah, I love how all of your top 5 are applied in this blog, because it's not just the way that you communicate and you reach people, but it's also that you're getting them to take action to be positive, and then you come up with ideas for how that can happen. It's just a beautiful way that you can kind of be everything that you are through this medium, and I think it's going to keep growing and affecting people. I think that, like Andy said, this is definitely something that makes sense with who I know you. I know who you are, and I know how much you love to share just positive life experiences, so this is a great medium for that.
Yeah, I think so.
So Nancy, when you speak with other people, I went to your website and there's a list of things that you speak on. Do you often integrate your kind of strengths journey or your story into those presentations?
Oh, that's a great question. My speaking right now, I used to be a full-time trainer, so I have that in my past. And the speaking I'm doing right now is more like speaking I'm planning on doing. And so my most regular speaking is at my Toastmasters meetings each week. Mm-hmm. And I would say definitely I integrate the essence of who I am and my strengths into that. I haven't yet really developed a talk where strengths are part of it. Although my blog post today, I did bring strengths into my one that I just posted today. So that was kind of fun. So that's the short answer to your question. I don't a lot because I don't speak a lot, but I probably will when I do.
Well, you've already, in the 34 minutes and 4 seconds that we've been talking, you've inspired me, because tomorrow I'm being interviewed on another podcast, and I was asked to basically discuss some key topics around podcasting, but I really want to integrate strengths and talents into how that individual talents can affect somebody's podcast. So one of the reasons that I reached out to Grace LeConte is because Grace is not my carbon copy. She's very, very good at areas where I am very, very weak, or my lesser talents.
Hi, Andy.
I know. So we really balance each other out, and I think that's imperative moving forward. If you ever form any kind of strategic partnership around blogging or podcasting, or you're ever taking on a dual role, to make sure that you investigate the talents of others that you're bringing on, because you don't want a room full of Andys, or Grace doesn't want to be in a room full of Graces, and Nancy doesn't want to be in a room full of Nancys.
That would be awful.
So I think that's important. But this short conversation that we had now has inspired me to kind of maybe weave that into my communication for tomorrow. So
yeah, I was going to ask Nancy, we met when I was living in the Woodbury area, Maplewood, that really nice area on the east side of St. Paul.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to you at a party. Do you remember that? When we were talking about strengths and the challenge of being a mom and trying to work and balancing everything. What stuck with me was a statement that you made about how when you're working in your strengths, you feel more like yourself. Like you feel like a truly happy person. And it really hit me when you were telling me that, because I wasn't able to use all of my strengths at that time. I had to really rev up the ones from the bottom of my list in order to do my job as a director at a healthcare facility. And it was very hard for me. So that was so encouraging that you just kind of gave me the permission almost to look for ways to develop my strengths in a way that I could be more of myself in my environment, rather than trying to be someone with context and deliberative and restorative. Honestly, problem solving was my main task every single day, and it wears me out. You know, being a restorative, no, I'm not restorative. That's my number 32 on my list. So it was so hard for me to try to solve problems every day when I wanted to think of ideas in the future and activate people and reach goals. And so anyway, that really gave me the permission, I think, when you shared that with me. Have you been able to share that with other people?
I think I have in casual conversations. You know, certainly on my work team, we speak strengths quite a bit, and it's been such a delight. I work most closely with 2 individuals on a team of 10 people, and we'll just, you know, look at each other and say, there's your restorative again, or, you know, I'll say your responsibility is a little too strong here. You might want to back off, and not back off because she's bugging me, but backing off because I see the burden it is on her. And we know that we have a boss who's a wonderful includer, and we've become really good at going, if we're having a side meeting because we functionally think it really doesn't need to involve all of us, we still tell her about it so that she can know that it's going on and then decide to opt in or opt out, and to have that kind of respect of one another's strengths. I certainly believe and hope that my expanded platform with the blog, as well as my future speaking opportunities, will give me chances to share the story more, because it is powerful, and it has been for me.
So Nancy, walk us through that moment. So you're sitting there, you're taking this assessment, you're going through, it's 177 questions, you got 20 seconds to answer each one. You're thinking to yourself, what's the results going to be? And then all of a sudden at the end, you receive your Theme Insights report, and it has your top 5 listed on it. Tell us kind of how you felt, maybe reveal some emotion as you were kind of reading through those top 5 and going through those brief descriptions.
You're asking me to remember something that happened 7 years ago. Okay. Let's see. It was a spiritual moment. It was just looking at this list going, I essentially agree with everything that this says. And when I read the composite report that combined not only those strengths generally, I mean, it was really interesting reading the difference between how they describe it in the book and then how they describe it in your report, because you get that customization level that factors in the degree to which you did things. And the only thing that I think I wondered about a little bit was Activator. And I remember reading that it says sometimes people get Activator because they answer the questions fast, which I do. I mean, I was done with it in no time. As I've gone over the years, I don't think it was just because I answered the questions fast.
I know it wasn't Nancy. I know you. Just when we went through different activities with the church that I was attending, you were able to inspire people to take action in so many ways that I don't even think you're aware of. It was amazing. Like when there was an opportunity and people were just kind of sitting around, there you were, you know, like this needs done, or this is something you could be part of. I just remember you taught me a lot about how to be a good activator. Because before I was kind of more of a devil's advocate. I would try to get under people's skin to push them. And my son, who has deliberative, hates that, hates being pushed and pulled and dragged into things. But I watched you come out with this, with the positivity that you have also. I mean, I think Activator makes a lot of sense. It just means that you are able to create change. You're able to inspire people to move. So it doesn't mean that you have to push or pull necessarily, right? Have you learned that as time has gone on, that Activator looks different than maybe you thought it did?
I think so. And I also think of it as it's like, God's little grace to me, because if I had those things without Activator, I'd be like one of those, oh, she's got great ideas, but she never gets anything done. And by having that even kind of like anchored in the middle of the list, I think it allows me to have good ideas, but also have the ability to put those into action. And as you said, when I have the opportunity to inspire others to bring them along as well. So it is definitely something that I have embraced and belongs on the list. So.
That's fantastic. What I like about the Activator strength is that it's an influencing strength, but it's one of the ones that causes things to happen. Even though it's not an executing, getting things done strength, it causes people to want to get things done. So I find that it's just a really incredible strength. It can also be kind of annoying to people with deliberative and restorative and discipline, like my husband, who has all three. But, talking about that, Nancy, did your husband Jim take the StrengthsFinder assessment?
He did, and I'm ashamed to tell you that the only one I typically remember, I think I remember he has belief at the top, and I'm pretty sure he has learner, and I have not memorized the rest, so now I'm motivated to go and do that.
That kind of makes
I'll
sense.
have to send them to you.
Great, yeah, I would love to hear that. I just, we've found on our show that when family members take this assessment too, it can help to bring out so many different layers in how we communicate. And Andy, you and I have talked about our relationships before, right? With family members and even close friends. Yeah. It's a way to finally talk, I can see that strength coming out, or
And I think as
this is why we're disagreeing.
As Nancy referenced in the workplace, I mean, really when you have a whole team who becomes strengths aware, it kind of gives you a sense of approval to let others know maybe when their talent is becoming too dominant, or asking their help because you know they have a certain talent. You could not, before the strengths verbiage was kind of injected into a workplace, you couldn't really do that without fear of somebody having their feelings hurt or maybe feeling like they were being pushed. But now, as everybody knows their top 5, that's an open communication tool. It really lubricates the communication process. When you can draw somebody in, you can say, hey, I know you love to communicate and you're really, really great at it, but we got to start moving. Like, we can't communicate anymore. We got to actually start implementing things. Or I know you're great at your woo, but you got to throttle back a little bit because people are getting a little freaked out by maybe your, it's not aggressive personality, but willingness to just kind of go up and be like, hey, I'm Andy, and stick your hand out and shake it, And that
I usually say
sometimes.
I'm Nancy, but yeah.
Well, I hope you didn't say Andy. That would make things awkward. But so it's really, and I know here in the Chamber of Commerce where my office is, it's become part of their culture. And we all identify with each other's talents and we all leverage each other's talents and strengths, but we're all really quick to identify maybe when somebody's kind of needs to let off the gas a little bit.
It's so much more descriptive to say, I see this strength in you, but it's making other people, feel uncomfortable because this strength has this effect on others. I mean, Nancy, you mentioned that, like, you can actually help people with the strength like includer by going an extra step and allowing them to feel that strength is acknowledged, right? That's fascinating. I absolutely love the idea.
I think that there's two things that I've seen over the years, and not just with strengths. Years ago, I was certified as a DISC trainer, and I remember some pivotal things I learned that totally apply whether you're talking about strengths or Myers-Briggs or the DISC, any of those inventories that seem to reveal who we are. There's people who resist that. I have them in my own family. Like, I don't want to be pigeonholed. I don't want to be put in a box. I don't want someone to tell me who I am. And I think you can always say, you know what, you don't have to. If you take the tool and it doesn't resonate with you, it hasn't perhaps led you to a truth that you either, maybe it didn't assess you right, or maybe it isn't true for you. And then you don't have to own it. So the pigeonhole fear. But the other thing that people do that's wrong, I think, with these tools is that they use it as a tool, almost like a weapon, like, hey, I'm a woo. I can laugh right now if I want to. Yeah. And, or he's like, well, I'm a deliberative. I need to think 5 more days before I can give you a decision. and the reality is that the best blessing to me of knowing my strengths and really being strong in my core understanding, and then taking the time to learn about what the other strengths mean and the strengths of people around me. And yes, I'm sorry, I don't know my husband's, but I have a new wife-induced guilt by that question. So I'm dealing with it, though.
That was not meant to be that way.
No, I know. That's my choice. But anyway, the term that we used with DISC was to be style versatile. And so to choose to be strength versatile so that in any situation, I can take my own strengths and kind of raise them and lower them as it seems most fitting for the dynamic of the individual I'm with or the group that I'm with. And when you have multiple people doing that, it is so cool. And you always have the opportunity to lead by example. One of the things I know I'll talk a lot about in my blog is like, don't ask the world around you to change. You go look in the mirror and start to change all that you can. And then when you're done with your list, then you can start working on everybody else. I have typically, since I've embraced that philosophy, I'm finding less and less to find in anybody because I have plenty to work on for me. And focusing on using my strengths to help interact better with others makes the most sense. The other reaction I had to seeing my strengths for the first time was just that sense that it explained so many things to me about things I'd done in the past, especially, I guess the best examples I could give was when I was in high school, two things that just, in a lot of ways, just didn't make any sense that I did these things. One was I was dating a guy who was on the swim team at my high school. And the reality was he didn't actually like me very much, but I kind of kept, trying to win him over. And so, the weight of the man's heart is through his stomach. Well, what if I take that to a new level? And I actually don't go through only his stomach, but the stomachs of the entire swim team. So every time they had a swim meet, I baked brownies. And so they were so excited. They'd see me. It's like, oh, yes, she baked brownies again. And I'd give them to him to give to the swim team. And they were all really bummed when he broke up because I actually think I might have still kept baking the brownies because I felt bad for him. And then I worked for a job where I was the high school reporter of the Rochester Post-Bulletin in Rochester, Minnesota. And I just got in the habit of like once a week, not more than that, but I'd bake for the newsroom people. And I love to bake. And so I've always used my baking as a way to bless people. And then I realized it's like, what are you doing? You're wooing. You don't just use your communication. A woo will use a lot of tools to win others over. And you kind of go, oh, she's just sucking up, or people can see it as insincere, but the reality is that's my heart wiring, is like, if I can make you happy and give you joy, it's not like, oh, I hope they like me. It's really, I just have fun having people go, this is really yummy, kind of stuff. So,
and your food is amazing, by the way. For anyone in the Minnesota region, go knock on Nancy's door.
Yeah, no, that's great. I never thought about that. I never put woo in other than your communication, or I
it's
never
way
thought
more
of that.
than, hey, how are you? I'm Nancy. I can introduce myself just fine.
Yeah.
We do a lot of things to win others over because that's how we're wired.
Yeah, makes
I
sense.
do that in educational settings. I'm a huge nerd, and I have intellection as my number 10, but oh my gosh, I got input and other learning strengths. And I use woo to get to the teacher so that I understand what's beyond just the classroom. And people have called me a suck up and whatever. I don't even care because I want to learn the information so much that it doesn't matter to me if people think that that's a way to get an A.
I like that. See, Grace and I were always learning from our guests. I think that's a great part about podcasting, is you bring these people on and they always have a different perspective maybe than you have, or they see things in a different way, and they feel free to share. And it's always a learning experience for us every single time. We always ask this question because sometimes there is some resistance to the word assessment alone. I know I had felt it for many years. Have you in the past ever approached somebody and told them about StrengthsFinder and said, you really should take this assessment? I feel like it would be something good for you. And if you ever get any kind of resistance, people, like you said, I'm not going to be pigeonholed, I'm not going to be placed in a silo. If so, how, specifically for StrengthsFinder, do you kind of get around that?
First answer is yes, absolutely. I've met many people, workplace, personal, my own home, who just they don't want to do it, or they don't see the value at the time, that they're asked to take it. And I guess in terms of getting around it, unless I'm in a position that I'm in authority over them and they have to take this, I typically let it go. I think I tend to operate from the side of passion, and I just try to advocate from what it's done for me. And I think you can inspire people with your own story more than trying to tell them how it will help them. They will either choose to be attracted to what they perceive it's done for you, or they won't, or it's just not the right time. I had, because the university that I work at is so supports this, they have students take it, and I'm not sure where they're at right now, but I know for a time they were having their incoming freshmen take the student equivalent strengths quest or something. My own children took it, and they're like, I don't care, I don't know what it is. And I would try, what are your strengths? And like, can you find that sheet? I just love to know. I don't know. I wanted to know so badly. And he just threw it in the drawer like Andy did. And he was telling me a little of his story. And to this day, I think he finally did tell me, and then silly me, I forget. And so now I'm really inspired to like get back. I'm going to know all my family strengths. And then I still have some resistors. So
I write it on a little piece of paper in my planner, and I keep it with me all the time just in case I have to reference it.
Yeah.
My mom was really resistant for a while because I think she didn't want me to psychoanalyze her, which is with good reason. We've had differences of opinions over the years, but once I finally saw those 5 strengths, it was after about a year of telling her how much I would learn from her, because I would finally have a way to understand the way that she thinks better. So instead of coming at it from, I want to know more about you, it was more, help me to understand you. I want to get to know you better. I have written all of my family members' strengths down, and I review them, especially before I have phone calls with them, because we live so far away. But it helps me to ask questions that are more specific to how they would want to be approached. It just helps so much. I'm way overanalyze everything, as you know, Nancy. I'm very strategic, and I don't mean to say this because, I don't care about people as relationship, building strengths, although I have very few of those. But it's more because that helps me to relate much better to people. So it's almost like a dictionary for me. It helps define somebody. Where I'm sure a lot of people feel uncomfortable being defined, but for those of us who are strategic thinkers, it just helps a lot.
I bet.
Nancy, your response to that last question, I think, was spot on, and I believe you revealed the key factor. The secret sauce is just tell your story.
Do I win a prize?
Yeah. You win an episode of Thematics, episode 31, featuring yourself. But I think you're right. Just share your story, because time and time again, I know when I first became a certified coach and people would ask me, what is StrengthsFinder? And I had my elevator pitch. I had my spiel. I thought, okay, when they ask me, I'm going to say this. And then I started saying, you know what? I'm just going to tell them, like, listen, this is what happened to me. I got out of the military after 11 years, and I lost sense of who I was as an individual. This acted as a compass, kind of a guiding light, and helped me kind of go forth and take on a path of least resistance, and allowed me to move forward in my business development as well as my personal life. And it could do the same for you if you're interested. That was much more effective than a 30-second pitch I whipped up in a Word document and put to memorized it. It was just so much easier just to share from the heart, and it's been more effective. And actually, since that day, I've started writing more and more like that, just very open and very conversational, and it's more effective for sure. So, Nancy, we always ask this question towards the end of the interview. What is your favorite theme in your top 5, and why?
I love them all.
That's a good answer, too. We'll take that.
It's like you're picking a child, right? Which is your favorite?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great example.
But is there one that really you couldn't live without? Like, you wake up and you're just so happy that you can have that strength?
So, for example, like some of the other strengths networks and things that are out there, I've heard the term core strength or core talent used. It's that one talent that seems to just drive the rest of yours. And mine is communication. I depend on my communication talent to fill in my strategic, futuristic, because without my communication, my strategic and my futuristic really have nowhere to go. That communication breaks through any kind of wall of resistance and allows me to bring all the other 4 with me.
Great example. And just in case anybody thinks that I'm copying you, I literally, right as you started to say that, decided communication. I think communication, I agree with you. It's foundational to everything I do. And as I look at my life, you see in my about section of my blog, my parents tell the story that I was a late talker, but once I started, I never stopped. And then I learned to write, and I found out, I can write and I can communicate. And for whatever reason, I have been given the gift that I can articulate articulate something for the first time that I've ever thought it in my life and make it sound like it must be a lifelong philosophy developed over, years of thought. And the bad thing is I actually don't remember then what it, people say, oh, what was that thing you said? It was so good. It's like, I don't know. I really don't. If it doesn't get captured, in writing or idea, it's just like there's too many. And that's the ideation. I think that my ideation stream pushes things out of my brain. That's my excuse for why I forget things.
Yeah.
But the communication is the foundation. And honestly, of the list, it's the one that probably helps me make a living too. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very similar to you. I cannot remember anything that I say. People do the same thing to me.
That's why we do a podcast, Andy. So
I know. I have to record that
captured.
stuff.
Yay.
Yeah, but I don't. I mean, I can never remember things that come out of my mouth. And I think it's like Nancy alluded to. It's because as soon as it pops in your head, you're able to communicate it. And there's not a lot of time for it to sit and stick. And Grace and I have spoke on this several times where I said the entire 5 days of the training that I went through at Gallup, I didn't take a single note. And I said I just don't take notes because just like I do not remember my own thoughts and things that I said yesterday, I will never go back and reread those notes that I took. I just know I won't.
Oh.
So
See, I'm different from you there. I got an iPad a couple years ago. I take Evernote notes for everything, and it kind of keeps me sane and remembering the details. But you know what? It's one of the things that you said just triggered an idea, and that is that sense. And I'm losing the trigger, but the phrase that's going through my mind is that any strength, if overextended, can become a weakness. Mm-hmm. And I definitely find that, I'm a communicator. Can I over communicate? Absolutely. You see that glazed look on people's face and you're like, I've given them just way too much context here or just too many words. I can over ideate in meetings. I can be over positive. I've actually found that I've noticed a sense, I accuse my kids of being argumentative when I realized that what actually the trigger was me starting the argument. Because if they say something negative, my positivity is so strong that I feel it's my beholden duty to help them see it more positively. But it comes out in the form of an argument because they just want to defend their right to think what they thought about that. And so I think that's the really careful thing that you have to do with strengths as well is to not just say, yeah, it's my strength, but it can also be my greatest weakness if I'm not self-aware and if I don't manage it well.
I'm sure your sons are like, what in the world is she sharing that for? But we appreciated all of the sons of the Zugschwert family.
I kind of had to get blanket permission before I started the blog. I said, I'm going to try not to use names and all of that, but I have a feeling there may be mentions occasionally. Are you okay with that? And it's one of the reasons I actually waited till my kids were older because I didn't want to, spill the beans about every private moment of their childhood. Oh my gosh, he was potty training and he did this. And now it's, captured for the whole world to see. So
you'll just have to call them you'll have to say 2 of 4, 3 of 4 did this, 4 of 4 did
I actually was thinking about uno, dos, tres, and cuatro.
Yeah.
But then we would still know who it is, though.
I know.
But we wouldn't know the names. But all right, well, we're approaching our we're going to turn into a pumpkin here in about 3 minutes, so we're approaching our time limit. So, Nancy, I want to thank you so much for being on this show. You really taught us a tremendous amount in a short amount of time, so I really do appreciate it.
It was absolutely my pleasure. It was really fun to think about it.
If you guys want to follow Nancy, it's theupside.com, theupside, UPSIDE.com. She's going to be blogging more often. Do you have a blogging schedule you're going to do? Weekly, bi-weekly? What's your plan?
Thanks for asking. I am going to be doing twice a week. Right now, my target is to have a new post on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if you sign up for my newsletter, I send out a kind of a recap on Fridays that will have some content occasionally that's not on the blog.
All right. Sounds good. I look forward to checking it out. All right, everybody. This is Andy Sikolich from UnleashStrengths.com. As always, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're doing all that great stuff. Again, this is Andy Sikolich from UnleashStrengths.com. We'll talk to you guys soon. See ya. Thank you for listening to another episode of Thematics presented by UnleashStrengths.com. Remember to embrace your strengths and always stay addicted. Just because this episode is over doesn't mean you have to stop watching. Click here for more episodes of the amazing podcast, Thematics. And as always, stay addicted.